Do want to do a little bit of a profile on Bregman because we have not done a full breakdown yet. He's kind of just been, fluttered around in some of these discussions on the offseason. So I want to get into Alex Bregman, and I am sure we will definitely have some polarizing discussions in this round. Of course, the report came out that the Mets are continuing to show interest in him, and they are considered a legitimate potential landing spot for the infielder, and that was via Mike Mayer. We've also gotten tons of other reports. Alex Bregman, one of the best third basemen in all of baseball ever since he came into the league. A 39.7 wins above replacement. That's 2 All-Star selections, 2-time World Series champion with the Astros, a Gold Glover, Silver Slugger. We already know about his great plate discipline, low chase rates, does not strike out a lot, puts the ball in play, not much swing and miss. Another quality season from him, 26 homers, 75 RBIs, 118 weighted runs created, plus OPS over 700 of going into a 31-year-old season. I have strong opinions about Alex Bregman, and I will get into those. I think this is a little bit more of a smokescreen than actual substance, but it is still something to think about with the Mets' financial flexibility.
He is one that there is a lot to unpack. I was very much like you when the idea was first kind of talked about. I thought this was more of one of those things we've seen in the Steve Cohen era where teams like to connect the Mets to a player, whether the Mets are actually interested or not, to drive up prices, to say, okay, well, we are a team, or we are a player that is asking for a lot of money. And we say, oh, if the Mets are interested in us, they're one of those teams that actually could meet what our demand is. So at first I thought it was that. But as time has gone on, and someone like Mike Mayer being like, actually saying like, no, the Mets are legitimately interested in Alex Bregman, now has me like, okay, I believe it. I'm like, okay, they are interested, but as far as like how I feel about him, there's a lot to go to. I mean, I'll start off with this. When I see in 2018 an 8 WAR and 2019 a 9 WAR, and then all of a sudden you're dropping down to 4 ever since, you sure look like a cheater when there's a cheating scandal going on in those years. I mean, that is a huge red flag right there, that like this guy who at one point we thought was one of the best players in the league is looking like a big time cheater. Still a good player, not a great player. The next thing I'm looking at is these past 3 seasons, we are seeing him declining offensively each year as he has now hit age 30. And it goes without saying in sports, generally speaking, once a player hits 30, things go down. So he's already declining before reaching age 30. Now he's 30, so he's going to be 31. So the chances of him continuing to decline are much higher than him improving. I mean, you've definitely seen the best of Bregman. So if he's a guy who's asking for like $200 million, maybe 5 years or more, why are you committing that to a guy who's already on a decline? I'm just not quite getting that. And you know what? If he was a guy where it's like, okay, well, let's say he was a 950 OPS guy, then he was like 920, then he's 900. All right, then he would still be a great player. But no, we're talking about going from 820 to 768. I mean, like you said, WRC plus 113. So he's a guy that was going from pretty good to he's just hovering above league average. So he's really just not all that offensively. Now, like we said, is he a better all-around player than Pete Alonso? Yes. Is he a better fit than Pete Alonso? Well, that's where I'm not so sure. Mark Vientos, is he the greatest third baseman? No, but he could play third base and you're fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a big deal. And you know what? It's like if you got Bregman instead of Alonso and you put Vientos at first, I've said this before, but like, I'm not sure that's actually better for your defense. Like, I don't know if an inexperienced Mark Vientos at first base is better than just having Vientos at third with Alonso. Even though we have defensive concerns, at least he could scoop the ball better than anybody and can actually like play the position and be fine and just like not a liability. Like, at least he could do that. And I just feel like when we talk about now the way the team is constructed, adding in Juan Soto, I would want a more power-driven bat around Juan Soto to protect him, not Alex Bregman. So I feel like Pete Alonso is better protection for Alex Bregman, even if Alex Bregman is the better overall player. Because again, what it comes down to is fit. I think that Alonso is the better fit. Now, once again, seeing what Alonso has done in New York, I also value that. You know, Bregman's been in Houston with this great organization that has had some fishy stuff going on in a phenomenal, I mean, exceptional hitter's ballpark. I mean, that is like, oh my God, it's lovely. So coming to City Field is a different aspect there right away. Meanwhile, we've seen what Pete can do in City Field. So, I mean, that's something right there. If I'm just comparing the two, I feel like Alonso is just the much safer bet. I don't need to try to do anything crazy here. Now, if the Mets already signed Alonso and they want to get Bregman, and then really what it comes down to is that Vientos is my DH instead of Starling Marte, sure. I'd rather have Alex Bregman with better defense and Vientos at DH, and Vientos as a way better bat than Marte at DH. That makes the team better. You know, I've also heard this idea of like maybe Bregman plays second. Maybe, but again, I don't like Bregman playing second, especially if we don't have Alonso. That just doesn't. That's just not. Again, why would you sign him to then put him out of position and you still have Vientos at third? Like no matter what, you're still just compromised. It's just not the greatest fit. And if it was up to me, this is my last big thing: is that if I could have, like, you gave me two options. Say option A is Pete and Bregman. Option B is Pete and another starting pitcher, whether that is a Castillo or a Pablo Lopez or take your pick. I like option B much better. I'd rather Alonso and another big time pitcher instead of Alonso and Bregman or Alonso and another hitter. Like a $20 million contract in addition to Alonso, I want it to be a starting pitcher and not a hitter. I just feel like that is what this current Mets team should be valuing right now more.
Andrew, we, for multiple years now, you and me have been very, very public about Alex Bregman. We've kind of talked about him more of being more of the product and not the solution when looking at it from Houston. We talked about it a little bit. He was on our free agents to avoid list. Then the whole mindset, of course, of how he fits into the Mets formula now with Soto here. It is definitely something to be said. And I do have tons of notes here that I do want to get into because we do have a decent amount of people watching us on Twitter. And if I am yelling at you, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to end up in the crosshairs.
Going into the off season, and again, I've said it even when when he was popping off in 2019. I always said Nolan Arenado was better, Jose Ramirez was better. I was never a Bregman guy. And then we obviously see how the off season's going. And I guess this is kind of how I'm looking at it. It's the same thing how we're looking at in the pitching scenario. I'm being opportunistic. I'm not locking this dude up 6 years. I'm saying if we bring and this is the caveat. Alonso needs to be brought back because I've made it clear, like Frank, we've all made it clear. He is not. I'm not. If I'm picking one, I'm picking Alonso. Like I said, just for the pure power, whatever. The only way I want him on this roster if Alonso's brought back, because and this is maybe again like you say, oh the MLB the show, but it's also to the extent of I'm trying to win a World Series now. I don't really give a shit about being the Rays or the Brewers of like constant success. Like no, I want to win a championship. I don't really care about all these National League Championship appearances or playoff appearances. If we don't win the ring, I really don't give a shit. Of look at the lineups you have to beat. If you can get Bregman on, again, we keep saying the Bellinger type deal, but again, nothing. Again, I'm not giving him 6 years, so that's again. It's really more of a no. But again, like we talk about with the starting pitching, if we can be opportunistic, and let's say, and like we said in the video, he doesn't have to be a leading offensive bat because if he's brought in with Alonso, he would have to be the fifth or sixth most offensive productive guy because you would obviously go Lindor, Soto, Alonso. If you expect Vientos, you could say Brandon Nimmo, and then I need Alex Bregman. Then I at least can like it. But it's all cost effective and always being opportunistic. If he's looking for that 6 year deal, he's going to Canada and going enjoying the fake bacon. Have fun because they're stupid and they'll give you the term. But if that doesn't happen, and we're sitting here at the end of February, and you can get him on a Bellinger type deal, and you can put Mark Vientos. Yes, we obviously. I think once you move him to first base, there's no longer moving him. But I'm not even to that extent. And Stearns has always been about putting guys in the right position. What is Mark Vientos' best tool? Is in the batter's box. So, and what is the run prevention that we've been fucking jammed down our throats of run prevention? You can get best of both worlds. Mark Vientos is put at the DH where he should be, and especially now with Jock Peterson gone, which again we were clamoring for him to be the DH. Everyone's like, "We'll bring Jesse Winker back." If you're telling me Would I rather have a Winker Marte platoon or just have Mark Vientos be my everyday DH? I'll take that and having Alex Bregman again on a opportunistic deal. But again, it's not if that doesn't happen, there's no interest here. But again, it would have to be with Alonso and a deal that he can get out again, or it's like a 2 plus an option. Like again, and that's probably not realistic. But again, if he holds out similar to Pete Alonso, we're getting to spring training. I think you could maybe be getting that Bellinger type deal. But again, I'm not giving term. I'm not giving crazy AV. But again, if you're being opportunistic and you're trying to win a World Series this season, Alex Bregman at third base and Mark Vientos at DH is a lot better than Jesse Winker, Starling Marte DH platoon with Mark Vientos defensively at third base. Again, I don't love Alex Bregman, but again, at a right price, you can like anybody.
Still needs to be the right fit. Again, you got Soto here for 15 years. So it's not like, oh, well, if we missed our opportunity, you get one shot, this is it. It's not like 2022 where it's like win now or win never or you're done and you're in financial ruin. It's not like that. That's not how I look at it. Now, let's get into my opinion on Alex Bregman. This more goes out to the people I see on Twitter, the fantasy baseball winners, the ones who know how to build a team on MLB The Show. Because every time I see on Twitter, if we get Alonso and Bregman, we are set. I'm taking this a step further. So if you disagree with me and you want to get very, very aggressive and you want to kill me, by all means. And if I end up being wrong about this in the future, 100% go after me. You have 100% permission for it. Okay? I'm just letting everybody know in the stream. We good? We good. Okay. As for Alex Bregman, this is genuinely the stupidest thing the Mets could possibly do in-house, out-of-house, on this free agent market. Let's look at the facts here and look at every single possible scenario because I have plenty of them. Alex Bregman is going to be going into a 31-year-old season, okay? Definitely a pivotal age in a player's career. Does he still have game left? Absolutely. The Mets don't have a need at third base, right? We know that there are plenty of infielders that possibly could be the third baseman. You never know. I understand you don't want to bank on a prospect. You want to win now. You want to build a fantasy team. I get it. Mark Vientos has done enough to be the starting third baseman next year. And I understand that everybody wants to jump to the conclusion of Mark Vientos not being a good defensive third baseman, which is true. But overall, I'd say that the arm kind of makes up for it for where it can be somewhat neutral, and he could probably get better. He's 25 years old. There's no reason to move him to DH. There's a reason why I don't want to see him play DH and why I never wanted to see him as the number one DH option when, in 2022, they should have just got somebody else. And it wasn't going to just be Mark Vientos to be that type of savior. The reason why I say that is Mark Vientos needs to play a position in order to progress in his career. He is 25 years old. And even though he's not great at third base, he has earned the right to play third base, not to mention the development of the kid. Obviously, it's not a strength of his. Obviously, there's some similarities to J.D. Davis. Well, let me bring in some similarities even more to J.D. Davis. When the Mets had J.D. Davis playing third base every single day in 2019. Obviously, juice balls, different situation. Obviously, J.D. Davis is not as good in overall offensive tools compared to Mark Vientos. When Mark Vientos was able to play third base every day, that's when he finally came into his own as a major league hitter. He was playing every single day. That was obviously more of the help of Beatty being ass. But when it came to overall Mark Vientos, when he came up here, they gave him the full-on playing time. They believed in him. If you move him to DH, it's going to be very, very similar. Not very, there's still other factors, but it's going to be very, very similar to what happened with J.D. Davis, where they basically exiled him and said, we don't believe in you. This is the type of J.D. Davis trap. Now, again, you never know. You don't know. Maybe he does have a sophomore slump playing third base. You never know. But being allowed to play a position, use all of his tools, be out there 24/7 every single day, stay healthy. Obviously, he's not there to do it, but again, he has room to improve. He was able to relax at the plate as well, because we saw some times where he was overmatched, but he was able to get those good results. 25-year-old DH, to be honest, is a stupid concept, in my opinion. Mark Vientos, even though he doesn't move the best or whatever, he's not the best defender, he's still young enough as to where he can play that position. We haven't seen Rafael Devers be moved off of third base yet, even though maybe it does happen in this free agency, but he's going into his 30s. Mark Vientos is not 30. Rafael Devers is not a great defensive third baseman, and I would say that in overall offensive production, Mark Vientos is getting to that trajectory of Rafael Devers. Let's just say that if he gets a full season and continues to grow as a player. As for Bregman being an addition with Alonso, it is also ridiculous. Even if you bring in Pete Alonso and you have Bregman in as the add-on, you're going to have a right-handed heavy lineup that we had last year that gets bullied by secondary stuff. And not to mention, from what we saw from the product of what he is in Houston, mediocre batted ball data. It's not the same hitter from 2019, which the year that the Astros were cheating, the juice balls, and he will never come close to that ever again going into his 30s. When you look at this overall lineup, they need left-handed bats. Pete Alonso can come back because it's pretty much just adding in, it's the net zero. It's adding in what you had last year. So it's the same situation of what you have to change. Obviously, Jock Peterson being off of the market, I would more have preferred him, but Winker is still available as well. I'd love to bring Winker back. As for the overall DH situation, Mark Vientos belongs at third base. In that ballpark, like you guys have touched up as well, and in that lineup, he was in a really good scenario there. Again, at Citi Field, which is less of a hitter's ballpark, with the mediocre batted ball data that he has, I feel like just overall he's going to be a contact hitter if he's not just a massive dead pull hitter, which will probably end up bringing down his plate discipline, which is one of his greatest strength tools. The Mets also have too many infield prospects right now, which again, you never know in regards to that. You never know where they're going to play. Maybe they get traded. They have way too many to not at least give them a shot. You can't have an all-star at every single position, obviously. But to commit 8 years, maybe 7 or 8 years, maybe $200 million of what we've heard what he's asking for, again, it's not worth it. Now, all of this talk about him moving to second base so Vientos can play third base, it'd be fine. All right. That's also nonsense as well. His offense does not merit a non-positional payday. When we're talking about prolific bats, Alex Bregman is not that type of prolific bat. You guys have already said that he isn't. You agree with me in that sense. Okay. Who's healthy all the time? One of the best second basemen in all of baseball now. He was a shortstop. It got shortstop-ish money to play second base. Remember when we had Carlos Correa here? He got shortstop money to play third base. Are their offense anywhere near close to Alex Bregman? I wouldn't say so. Overall batted ball data, overall power, overall versatility. Positionless baseball. Is Alex Bregman worth that? No, he's not. Now, also at second base, we have a guy named Jeff McNeil, who we all know how I feel about. If you were to end up getting rid of him for Bregman to play second base, you are going to have to end up trading him, and you're going to have to cover part of that contract for 2 more years. So in the first 2 years of that Bregman contract, you are going to be replacing an overpaid second baseman with another overpaid second baseman. Ridiculous. Not to mention, again, why I think this is a smokescreen. The draft pick compensation, I feel like they're hesitant to give up. Again, you give up a draft pick for a guy like Juan Soto, who is a generational type of talent and is going to be great for years. When you're talking about Alex Bregman, is he 26 years old? No, he is not. Is he as prolific bat as Juan Soto? No, he is not. Is he as good of a player as Juan Soto overall? Probably not. Do I think that Bregman is a good player? Sure, he's a good player. But is it really worth it to give him $200 million over 8 years because he was an all-star at one point? He's won the World Series on a fantastic team. Than him recently, since that 2019 year with the juice balls and with him cheating and everything. Right-handed heavy lineup. They need left-handed hitters. To me, it just doesn't look like a fit. Yes, they have the financial flexibility to do it. I think it just isn't a good fit for the Mets. And I think you guys agree with that. I believe that bringing in Pete Alonso, letting Mark Vientos continue to get his well-deserved reps at third base is the way to go wait out what happens with Ronnie Mauricio if he's struggling or whatever. Again, I've kind of accepted that one of McNeil or Marte are going to be here next year. But when it comes to fantasy baseball, Stearns is not going to look at it in that sense. He's going to look at it as a good fit.